Coming up, an absolutely loaded episode of the Kev BK Beloved Show. The conference semifinals for the NBA playoffs are jumping, the WNBA Season Opener, and I got in my bag with some NBA research for y'all. But first, I love that y'all can get my literal instant reaction after these night games, because the game very literally just ended between the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota TimberWolves. Game 5, obviously, I'm speaking of. And oh boy, how those turntables. Just last week, Denver was down 0-2. Anthony Edwards was Michael Jordan. The Timberwolves were gonna sweep, and 3 wins later, Nikola Jokic had that MVP trophy touch his hand today and was like, I am good at the basketball. That's a terrible Eastern European accent. I know how y'all get down. Leave me alone. It was a joke. Came out to game 5, got 40, 13, and 7 with no turnovers and an absolute hatred for Rudy Gobert. I don't know if France and Serbia got some beef that I don't know about. I don't venture in European politics on that side, but something between those two is personal. He hates that man. Oh my God. But the real key to the Nuggets making this turnaround these past 3 games has been Jamal Murray. Now, game 5, he was middle of the road, 16 points, 7 for 14 shooting, 50%. But the real thing that he was able to do this game, before I get to the game 3 and 4, that really helped was, since Mike Conley was out for the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards was chasing him around a lot. So he really was just getting a lot of cardio, because he knew, hey, if I got Anthony Edwards chasing me, tiring him out is the best thing I could do, because we're doubling him on the other side and we're in altitude. So the more tired I make him, the better I'm doing for my team. So now we can go to game 3 and 4. And what I said this during the season, so I'll say it again. The Denver Nuggets are 16-2 when Jamal Murray scores 25 points or more. They are damn near unbeatable when he is a top flight second option. In game 1 and 2, he had 25 points combined. They lost 2 straight. That's not a coincidence. And y'all wanted that man to get suspended over a damn heat pack. Stop being losers. He came out game 3, 4, balled. Came out game 5, did what he had to do, and now we got an elimination game situation. Where will it go from there? Who knows? I got to give love to Aaron Gordon too, because a big switch that the Denver Nuggets made to kind of counteract that full court press that the TWolves were giving them was they had Aaron Gordon bring the ball up more. And I think a lot of the NBA fans forgot that he's not just a run and dunk, stand in the dunker spot and catch lobs type of player. When he was in Orlando Magic, he was the offense. He was the primary ball handler, scorer, defender, you name it. He was the Magic when he was down there. And he was able to use a lot of those skills again for game 4 and game 3. And it was honestly beautiful to watch. Granted, game 4, he also went 11 for 12. Obviously, he's not going to do that every single game for the series, but still. But on the Minnesota TimberWolves side, there are a lot of realizations you have to come to about your team that these past couple games should have led you to. Realization number 1. Rudy Gobert is the Defensive Player of the Year by vote, but me personally, if the game plan for another team at any point can be targeting you on defense, you can't win Defensive Player of the Year anymore. You just can't. But the alternative is Karl Anthony Towns, who was out there on one leg today. Now, granted, he came back in the game, got to 23 points, 10 for 19 shooting. Ironically, probably his best game of the series outside of game 2, but still. And I don't know how many outlets you're going to hear it on, because we're in the give Anthony Edwards a pass stage of his superstardom. But Anthony Edwards stunk game 5. He stunk. 5 for 15 is not going to cut it. I don't care if they're doubling you. Figure it out. You superstar, right? Figure it out. Forecasting for the rest of the series, I think I speak for all NBA fans when I say for game 6, God damn it, we are all Timberwolves fans. We want game 7. Minnesota, do not let us down. We are all Minnesota Timberwolves fans. We want 7. We want a classic. Get it done. Knicks Pacers, I came in with a little bit of concerns for the Knicks. Well, a lot of bit of concerns. First of all, the fatigue thing. I don't care what Josh Hart tries to tell y'all because he wants to get quoted and be the regular everyday man's hero. Bullshit. There's a reason why he was averaging the most minutes ever for any playoff player, and no one else in NBA history did it, because it's hard to do. And your human body is not supposed to do that. That's why. The fatigue for the Knicks is a very real thing. It is a commonly reoccurring theme for Tom Thibodeau teams. That's why Joakim Noah's career ended early. Luol Deng's career ended early. Derrick Rose had all the injuries. This is not an accident that every single star player that Tom Thibodeau's ever had, with the exception of Jimmy Butler, by the way, he's the only one to get out of Thibodeau's system with both his knees intact. There's a reason this keeps happening, because he keeps maxing out these players' minutes. This is not sustainable. However, getting their asses kicked on Sunday so these players can actually get a rest in the middle of getting their ass kicked worked in their favor. Josh Hart went from 48 minutes a game to 24, to which he came out the next game and went 18 and 11. Looked like Josh Hart again. And when the Pacers were evening the series for game 3 and 4, we got 3 good all-pro Tyrese Halliburton games again, and that was fun to see. Until game 5, where he decided he was going to take 9 shots. And we'll get there shortly. But for game 5 in particular, I need y'all to hear me and hear me good. For y'all that weren't here for football season, blaming the refs is for fucking losers. I saw when Scott Foster got assigned to the game, Pacers fans got to crying. NBA fans across the league were like, oh, they want to push the Knicks to the finals and blah, blah, blah. Y'all want to hear this by the numbers? The foul differential was 19 to 22. The Knicks got called for more fouls. The free throw differential was 17 out of 22 for the Pacers, 15 out of 19 for the Knicks. So not only did the Knicks get more fouls called on them, the Pacers got more free throw shots and made more free throw shots. That also includes 4 technical fouls called on the Knicks, by the way. Things that are out of their control, since the refs are just in such a rush to put the Knicks over there in the playoffs. You lost by 30 goddamn points. You want to talk to me about some Scott Foster? Come on now. You know what Scott Foster had nothing to do with? Losing the points in a paint battle 62 to 36. Losing the offensive rebounding battle 20 to 5. How about losing the total rebounding battle 53 to 29? You think that had something to do with you losing by 30 points in game 5? Think that has something to do with it? But y'all want to talk to me about some Scott Foster. It's easier to blame the refs than the fact that your team played shitty, huh? Much easier to do that. But back to Halliburton, and this is the key for Game 6. Game 6 is an empty to clip game. This is not I'm going to go out here, try to be efficient, shoot a bunch of shots. No. Fuck that. We don't want to hear shit about your hamstring, your back, your toe, your ankle, your titty. I don't care what's hurt. You go out there with whatever ailment you have, because if you lose, you have the whole offseason to heal up. Defend your home court. Get it done so that we can get Game 7. All right, with that said, next series we go. All right, let's talk about the only team that actually did go up 3-1, my Boston Celtics. Starting on a positive note, because I realized I got to stop being a pessimistic Celtics fan, because some of y'all are starting to get it confused. Like, I don't think we're still awesome. Trying to be objective, I pushed a little bit too far, so let me bring the bias in just a little bit more. Because this team won 64 games for a reason. Jason Tatum put up 2 straight 30-point games in a row, making him the 8th all-time player with 30, 10, and 5 games, but crickets on that. Just matched Michael Jordan's total for the most points in his first 7 trips to the playoffs. Crickets on that as well. And everyone was so concerned about his point totals. Me personally, I could care less. I'm more concerned with the shot selection and making sure that we won. That's all I care about. Matter of fact, if he would have scored 40 points shooting nothing but those sidestep threes, I probably would be here more upset, even if we won by 50. But to the rest of the team, Jaylen Brown came through with 2 straight 25-plus point games. Drew Holiday took it upon himself to put in a better scoring effort these past couple games, especially because him and Derek White are fighting through every screen in the book to try to play a little bit of defense on these guards from Cleveland because they know they can't be taken one-on-one. Overall, love what I saw from the Celtics Game 4. Okay, enough positivity. Before Game 4 started, and they announced that Donovan Mitchell would not be playing, every Celtics fan in the world immediately knew, they're going to make this so much harder on themselves than they need to, don't they? Sure enough, our only game in the postseason so far that's decided by single digits was that one. Now, thank God they didn't lose, but I do think it's worth noting. To the Cavaliers side, Darius Garland played his best game in Game 4, by a long shot. His best game in the playoffs, and I'd argue his best game of his Cavaliers playoff career, because he's never made the playoffs without Donovan Mitchell being on his team. Why is that relevant? Because in an earlier podcast when I was previewing these playoffs, I said Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland cannot play together. How much more evidence do you need that this is not going to bear the championship fruit, that it is going to cost you, especially after you have to pay Evan Mobley? Speaking of Evan Mobley, I think he's been impressive these past couple games as well. He's made Al Horford look really, really, really old, which hurts my heart, but the truth is the truth. And with Jared Allen off the floor, he's starting to look like he's finally getting that development we've been waiting for him for the past 2 years, which proves my other theory that having two center/power forward-ish type players on the floor at the same time is not going to work in the NBA in 2024 unless you're the Nuggets and your center is also a point guard. The facts are the facts. You can debate whoever you want to debate on that. That ain't got nothing to do with me. But, and I'm going to call my shot a little bit here, but after the Celtics end the series tonight and get them out of here in 5 the way it was supposed to be the whole time, I say the Cavs will have a lot to look forward to this offseason and have some decisions to make as the Celtics await whoever comes out of this absolute war between the Pacers and the Knicks. Next game. OKC and the Mavs now tied up at 2-2. And what I found so interesting about Game 3 and Game 4 is OKC's youth lost them Game 3, and then their youth won them Game 4. And that's what makes these playoffs so awesome. That's what makes playoffs in general so awesome. Because game to game, you never know what's going to be an advantage and a disadvantage. What do I mean by that? So end of the quarter, Game 3, end of the fourth quarter. You look at how they're executing down the stretch for both teams. And outside of SGA for OKC, they were getting nothing. Nothing from nobody. Jalen Williams in general hasn't really been awesome for this series. I get it. First time around. He just now his first breakout year. Takes a little while to adjust to playoff basketball. I feel you, Jalen. It takes a minute. Meanwhile, Kyrie's on the other end cooking. The point total may not have shown it. May not have been like a gaudy 40-point night, but we got more of the traditional point guard stuff from Kyrie that he really has developed towards the, I guess, back half of his career is what we're going to call it now. He's not even in his mid-30s yet, but y'all know what I mean. And then Game 4, you just saw the Mavericks die in the fourth quarter. Their effort just... And meanwhile, OKC kicked it into high gear and just out-efforted them for the rest of the game. It really started after halftime, but you just saw Dallas look gassed. And Luka's limping around. And when he's not limping, he's complaining at the refs. All culminating in SGA outscoring Luka and Kyrie by himself. In that fourth quarter, he had 10. Kyrie and Luka had 8 combined. Lou Dort had 8 himself. Chet had 7. Jalen Williams had 7. So late in the game, OKC was able to turn it on because they had those younger, fresher legs, and Dallas just didn't have it. And yet, and still, they still had that 4-point lead with 3 minutes left in the game? Didn't matter. OKC was able to turn it around late because they just had more juice at that point. And since we're in the process of praising players, I have to praise SGA because he's restoring the feeling of the mid-range jumper. I never thought I'd see it. He went 10 for 14 in the mid-range according to the NBA stat guys. Somewhere Sean Livingston is smiling from ear to ear, just enjoying watching this masterpiece from this young man, just restoring a brand of basketball that we all thought was dead. Not SGA. Also, the free throw disparity was crazy. Not in calls. The Mavericks shot 23 free throws. OKC shot 24. Only difference is the Mavericks only made 12. OKC made 23. For y'all keeping count at home, that's 52% for the Mavericks and 95% for OKC. Not a good combo for the Mavs who want to win, even if they had a franchise record 13 blocks in one game. That's more evidence of OKC's size starting to bite them in the behind a little bit. I feel like that'll affect them more if they win this series going into the next one. If they have to play Minnesota and or Denver, that lack of size is really going to hurt them. But before we even get there, I do think the momentum has swung a little bit back in OKC's favor because losing out on a chance to go up 3-1 against a team that you know doesn't have the experience, I think that does something to a team's psyche. I really do think it does. I know the nerds don't believe in momentum. I do. So the key for tonight's game, outside of Luka's knee, for me is going to be, when does Kyrie Irving decide to turn on the gas? Are we getting all right, my guy doesn't have it, my co-star doesn't have it, I got to open it up immediately and turn it on? Because so far this series, he's kind of been playing that Mariano Rivero closer role, mid-third quarter going into the fourth, really turning it up then, which is fine until you go to turn the switch and that joint don't come on no more. Case in point, see Game 4. You can't depend on PJ Washington to pick up the slack if Kyrie Irving isn't going to turn it on earlier, and Luka Doncic is going to be hurt, limping around and complaining at refs the whole game. For OKC, I do think their best chance to win this, though. With all that said about Dallas, they have to win the next 2 straight. I think asking this young of a team to win a Game 7, even though it would be at home, to win a Game 7 against that experienced of a backcourt, you're asking for a lot. Not saying they can't, but you're asking for a lot. So I like their chances a lot more winning a Game 6 on the road than having to win a Game 7, the first one that whole unit has ever played in their lives. But that's going to be real fun to check back in next week and see where we are, because by the time next week's podcast comes out, if my math is correct this time, we should be getting ready for the conference finals. And that is going to be a really fun time. No matter who gets out of this series, that's going to be an incredible fun time. Can't wait to see it. Quick break, and then we'll go to our next segment. So opening night of the WNBA was yesterday night at the time that most of you are hearing this, and tonight as I am recording this. I wanted to do a full preview of the season, but because I'm horrible at time management and I have the memory of a golden retriever, slipped my mind and I didn't get to prepare for it. That one's on me. But the main event of opening night was Caitlin Clark's debut, and they were playing the Connecticut Sun. Final score ended up being 92-71. Connecticut Sun put foot to ass to the Indiana Fever. And to the Caitlin Clark stands, reality came, huh? Again, I'm not laughing at her. I'm laughing at the stands because Diana Taurasi tried to tell y'all. Cheryl Swoops tried to tell y'all. Every WNBA fan tried to tell y'all, yo, this ain't Iowa. It's going to take a while before y'all start seeing the 30-point, 10-assist games that y'all are used to seeing from her. The WNBA adjustment takes a little minute. One great clip I saw was of Aaliyah Boston walking her into the locker room. I'm not great at reading lips, but I'm assuming it was something along the lines of, hey, this is going to take a while. Especially when you add in the fact that the national championship was like a month ago. She's had a month off from playing basketball. Everyone else had a full off season. Yeah, it's going to take her a little minute to adjust to this. And she went out there and set a league record in turnovers with 10, which I'm going to go the other end of the spectrum here. I'm actually happy she did that. She had the most shot attempts on her team. She shot 15 of them. She went 5 for 15, shot 11 threes. I'm happy she did it. Is the shot selection a little, is it as good as we need it to be? Is it as good as her coach wants it to be? Is it still more of that Iowa shot selection that's really not going to fly in WNBA? Yes. But I like the fact that even though her team was getting punched in the face that game, she's not scared to take those shots. She's not scared to drive the lane. She's not scared to throw it in the paint. She's not scared to attempt those passes. I'd much rather that than she went out there and played scared the whole game. If there's ever supposed to be signs of life, that's what you take right there. That's the positive of this. Now, what's going to annoy WNBA fans and certain players in the league, whether they admit it outwardly or not, is the fact that if you go to ESPN.com right now, the WNBA page, all you're going to see is Caitlin Clark scores team high 20 points in WNBA debut. And for people who didn't actually watch the game, they're going to be like, oh, well, she was cooking. What's wrong with the rest of the team? Not knowing that could not be further from the truth. That's just not. Her first point didn't come until they were already down 10 points in the second quarter. It wasn't a great game for her. Again, like the fact she wasn't scared, but it just wasn't a great game for her. And that's fine. It's a long season. It's a long season that's going to have a break in it because of the Olympics. Like, come July, she's literally going to get a month off. So I preach patience for every rookie in every single sport. NFL, NBA, I don't watch MLB, but still, every sport, as a rookie, it takes time to adjust to playing grown-ass men and women. It takes a while. Not everybody can be Candace Parker. Not everyone can be Diana Taurasi to where you're dominating your rookie years fresh off of campus. That's why they're legends. Speaking of legends, though, since we brought up Diana Taurasi, the game after that was the Phoenix Mercury against the Las Vegas Aces. And for the people who stayed around to watch that game, you got to watch, in my opinion, the best player on earth in A'ja Wilson for the Aces, and arguably the greatest WNBA player of all time, Diana Taurasi, on the other side. And Diana looked like she's ready to play offense for the rest of her life. Defense, but on offense, she's ready to keep shooting that ball until she's dead in the grave. Went out there, put up 11 threes, made 7 of them. 8 for 14 from the field, led her team in scoring with 23. But then we get to A'ja on the other side, and she came out the first quarter swinging. 17 points in the first quarter after getting the ring ceremony. And I saw it, and I was like, yep, that's about how I expected this to go. So I really hope that people who came just for the Caitlin Clark show at least stayed for the first quarter of the Aces and Mercury game, just so you can see what the actual pinnacle of WNBA basketball looks like. And that's A'ja Wilson. That's what pinnacle WNBA basketball looks like. It's A'ja Wilson. And at some point, Breanna Stewart's going to come back for Liberty, and you're going to get to see what the other peak of WNBA basketball looks like. And quite honestly, I'm jealous because y'all get to discover these players. All right, at some point, I'm going to have a much deeper dive into the WNBA season once I get my shit together. That one's on me. I have failed you as your sports guy and content creator. That's my bad. I apologize. I'm sorry. But until then, let's take a quick break, and we'll move on to whatever next topic I edited next. So all that talk about OKC really made me think of something that I was going to tweet out, but I wanted to save it for the podcast. And I'll read the exact draft to you. The funniest part about the Thunder's success is that trading for SGA essentially became their version of the Harden trade, except they're on the right side of history this time. For y'all that don't remember, immediately after losing the 2011-2012 NBA Finals to Miami, they ended up trading James Harden the following summer to the Houston Rockets. James Harden was coming off the bench at the time, and they had no idea that he was eventually going to turn into one of the greatest scorers the league has ever seen. They ended up getting the pick that turned to Steven Adams, Jeremy Lamb, Kevin Martin, and something else I'm forgetting at the moment. Regardless, they traded away a future MVP and 30-point-a-game scorer. Doesn't really matter what you get back if you traded that away. But now, fast forward to 2019, where they traded away Paul George, and in return, they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the deal, who's in a very similar situation with the Clippers, where he was coming off the bench. He was, I think, much younger than Harden, though, so he wasn't fully developed as a player yet. Harden, again, I want someone to go look back and really go watch. I could give you the stats all I want to. It didn't take Harden long when he got to Houston to start cooking. It happened pretty immediately. He got sent there, and within the first week, he was dropping 30s and 10s, and we were like, oh, that OKC trade was dumb immediately. This one took a couple years for OKC's SGA trade to look good. But let me just recap what OKC got in return for Paul George. So they traded Paul George. That's all they sent to the Clippers, Paul George. In return, they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, the Miami Heat's 2021 pick, which ended up becoming Trey Mann, who's now in the Hornets, the Clippers' 2022 pick, which became Jalen Williams, who's now their second best player, a pick swap that they ended up not using for the Clippers in 2023, and they still have potentially 4 more picks from that one trade. They have another unprotected Clippers first coming in this draft for 2024. They have a lottery protected pick next year for Miami. They have another first round swap with the Clippers next year as well. And then they have a 2026 first round pick for the Clippers. So they already have the best player in the trade, the third best player in the trade, and now 4 more picks still waiting on that. But if you remember, they also traded Russell Westbrook that summer. In return, they got 1 year Chris Paul, Aaron Wiggins, Alex Polavsky, whatever his name is, 2 first-round picks, a pick swap with the Rockets, a protected 2027 first-round pick, and a second-round pick from the Pacers. So essentially, they started their own version of the process, except they never completely bottomed out on purpose. They did trade away their two best players, similar to what the Philadelphia 76ers did, but their rebuild was a lot faster, and that led me to comparing the OKC process to the Philadelphia 76ers process. And Philly fans, you might want to skip this segment. This might be a little hard to hear. So Oklahoma City's process started with the Damian Lillard shot that broke up the OKC Thunder, the Paul George, Russell Westbrook version of the Thunder. Y'all know the shot where Dame shot the 3-game winner 1 foot past half court. Paul George called it a bad shot. Dame looked at him, said, play defense, waved them off. The whole team tackled him. He looked into the camera for one of the greatest pictures in NBA history that I'm sure if you're watching the video, I have edited in so you could see it with me. They lost in 5 in that series. They were 49-33, finished 6th in the West that year. They make the trades I mentioned before. They get a baby SGA, a year of Chris Paul. The following year, they lose in 7 in the first round in the bubble to the Houston Rockets, 44-28. They then trade Chris Paul, and here come the down years. They win 22 games, 24 games in 2021 and 2022, finishing 14th and 14th at both. Following year, they go 40-42, finishing 10th, and losing in a play-in game against my best wishes, because I really wanted to see that team in the playoffs that year. And then here we are in 2024, and they're first in the Western Conference, with a chance to make a conference finals, which the Philadelphia 76ers still have not done a decade later than the process. Which leads me to the Sixers, who their process started after the 2012-2013 season when they hired Sam Hinkie, and he started trading away all their best players. And it starts with drafting Michael Carter-Williams, 11th overall. He wins Rookie of the Year. We're off to a great start. But they also waived Danny Granger that year, who ended up being an incredible player for the Pacers until he got injured and Paul George eventually ended up taking over that role. There's a part of me that really wishes that we ended up getting the Danny Granger-Paul George combo, but that's a story for another day. That season, they went 19-63. You say, damn, it doesn't get worse than that, right? Yes, it does. The following year, they go 18-64. But that draft, they draft a man by the name of Joel Embiid, 3rd overall. Maybe you heard of him, but he didn't play that year or the following year. Then they also traded away the aforementioned Michael Carter-Williams, who just won Rookie of the Year, traded him away the following year because they need to suck and he's too good, he gotta go. I shit you not, that's actually the reason they traded him. So we go into the next season, they go 10-72. So we are now at 3 straight seasons of not just being bad, being dog shit bad. They get the 3rd overall pick again. They take Jahlil Okafor, who ended up being a flat out bust. In their defense, if they would have got the 1st or 2nd pick, it would have been Karl Anthony Towns or D'Angelo Russell, who, while they're still in the league, they aren't exactly Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon, you know what I mean? So we move on to the next year. Joel Embiid finally starts playing. 33 games, but he starts playing. A glimmer of hope starts to arise. They still went 10-72 that year. Finally got the number 1 overall pick, to where they drafted a man by the Philly fan cover your ears, Ben Simmons. Yeah, I know. That's a rough one. That's a rough one. But that was the last year of just abject poverty for the Philadelphia 76ers. So that is 4 straight years of being absolutely terrible for the sum of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Is pretty much the sum total of that. I'm sorry, one more pick is they got the number 3 overall pick the following year, but their front office decided they were going to be Mr. Smarty Pants after they fired Sam Hinkie, who started the process, who they didn't let finish it. Elton Brand and one of the Colangelos, who ended up getting busted for having burners accounts, shout out to the Ringer, they decided we're going to trade with Boston to the number 1 overall pick, and we're going to give them number 3. They drafted Markelle Fultz. The Boston Celtics drafted Jason Tatum. Thank you, Philly. Thank you so much. We got one of the 5 to 10 best players in the league. You got a player with a broken jump shot who's now on the Orlando Magic. Good job. But on the plus side, we're now in the playoff era of the Sixers. They're finally back in the playoffs after those years of abject poverty. They go 52-30 that year, finish 3rd in the Eastern Conference. However, they lose in 5 in the 2nd round to the Boston Celtics, who had that number 3 overall pick they just traded away, Jason Tatum. The next year, they suffer the most heartbreaking loss of the 2010s. They lose in 7 games to the Toronto Raptors. And if I wasn't 100% sure, I would get copyrighted if I played the sound and the video for this, because this is Kevin Harlan's greatest call ever. The Kawhi Leonard shot in Game 7, where he crouches down as he watches the ball bounce into the basket and watches the hopes and dreams of Philadelphia crack like the Liberty Bell. And remember, that's the best it got post-process. That's the best. They ended up getting the 7-game series 2 other years, but don't worry, we'll get there. The next year, they get swept in round 1 in the bubble again by my Boston Celtics. The Celtics are a commonly reoccurring character in there. Following year, lost in 7 to the Hawks in round 2. The reason why this one isn't the same peak as the Kawhi shot, one, because they got dog walk in Game 7, and also, this is the series that broke Ben Simmons and is the reason why he is hated in Philly till this very day. But they still managed to make the playoffs the following year anyways. They even got out the first round, just to lose in 6 to Miami in round 2 to Jimmy Butler, who they decided to pay Tobias Harris over 2 years prior. The following year, second round, they get up 3-2 on the Celtics. After missing their MVP Joel Embiid for multiple games, James Harden has the best playoff games of his career. Game 1 against my Celtics was the best I've ever seen James Harden ever play. They go up 3-2. Game 6, they're up double digits in the 4th with a chance to close it out. Jason Tatum has a great 4th quarter. We push it to 7. Game 7, they lose 112-88. Jason Tatum scores 51 points, still the record for most points in a Game 7. They get booted, and now here we are in 2023-2024. They have lost in 6 to the New York Knicks. So that is a 10-year recap of their process that has landed them in the spot that OKC is hit in 5, literally half the time. And if OKC can get out of this round and can beat the Mavericks to make it to the conference finals, they will officially have hit a higher point in their rebuild than Philly has in theirs in half the time. And they didn't have to trade away their first round picks to do it. So what is the summary of all this? What's the point of me walking Philly fans through their misery and giving all this praise to Sam Presti and the OKC front office? Number 1, long rebuilds are bullshit. And I want every fan base to know this. They don't take a decade. They take 3 to 5 max before your team should be back. And you shouldn't be dog shit bottom of the league as you're rebuilding. You should have glimmers of hope along the way. Also, small markets don't matter. We just compared OKC to Philadelphia. We have to be honest about these things. And you have to look your general manager in the eye and say, yo, you're just bad at your job. Straight up, you're bad at your job. Or else, why is this rebuild taking so long? And again, I have to say this again for dramatic effect. Long rebuilds are bullshit. And that's why we're at OKC. And that's why here we are with the Philadelphia 76ers 10 years post-process, and all they have to show for it is an iconically heartbreaking loss in the playoffs and Joel Embiid. That is all. Sucks to suck. Quick break so the Philly fans can wipe their tears, and we'll move on to the next segment. I'm not sure if this is a full segment or just a point I want to make, so we'll just see where it goes from here. I was thinking about the term championship medal and heart of a champion that we just throw on teams. And I want to see how many teams were actually able to repeat as champions the following year. So I did some research. We have 12 teams in the history of the NBA's 78-year history, starting with the Minneapolis Lakers. Yes, for the youngins out there, the Lakers were in Minneapolis before LA, but they count the LA titles within their title total, even though most of them can't tell you who George Mikan is, but sure, that's fine. George Mikan's Lakers pulled a three-peat, the first three-peat in NBA history, in 1952, 1953, and 1954. Number 2 on the list is Bill Russell pulled a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-peat from 1959 to 1966. Absolutely ridiculous. Number 3 is Bill Russell and the Celtics again. This time just a regular repeat because he retired after the 1969 year. It was 1968 and 1969. Those 2 were his player coach, and all Bill Russell championships were repeat-esque, with the exception of the first one that he won as a goddamn rookie. So now we gotta wait another 20 years to see another repeat champion. And we get the Showtime Lakers with Magic and Kareem, 87 and 88. Don't have to wait as long, though, because the literal next year, the Bad Boy Pistons win in 1989 and then 1990. As we get to the 90s, y'all know where we're going with this. The first three-peat by Michael Jordan's Bulls. Michael Jordan, Scottie, and Phil Jackson. Make sure everybody get their credit here. Jordan retires to go play baseball. The never quit attitude literally retired from the sport, but they erased that one from history, unless you watch Space Jam. Hakeem Olajuwon goes back-to-back and shows y'all that, yeah, I deserve to be the number one overall pick over Michael Jordan, and no one complains about it because he can do that. 94-95, Chicago, second three-peat. After Mike comes back after getting beat by the Magic, bring in Rodman, three-peat again. Then we got the Shaq Kobe three-peat from 2000 to 2002. Los Angeles Lakers, again, the Kobe repeat with Paul Gasol, 2009 to 2010. The Heatles, 2011 and 2013. Then we got the Golden State Warriors, 2017 to 2018. That's the Kevin Durant version of the Warriors. So why do I bring that up outside of the fact that I can use Google and know NBA research? I bring that up because I don't think we've really put in perspective how hard it is to repeat as champions. I'll put this in perspective. The Milwaukee Bucks won the championship 3 years ago. I want us all to let that sink in. It has only been 3 years since the Milwaukee Bucks won the championship. And the following year, all that championship medal and championship mentality didn't mean shit when it was Game 7 in Boston and Grant Williams couldn't miss and they ended up losing in the second round of the playoffs. We got the Warriors in 2022 who ended up winning the following year. How different does the league look now for them? They're talking about getting rid of either Draymond, Clay, or both this offseason. We don't know how quickly the league is going to change year to year. We think we know, but we really don't. And I really do think it's lazy to just assume that the repeat champions are going to just win and win and win again. Now, and as much as we like the Nuggets this year, even if they do get out of this series with the Timberwolves, we can't just assume that they're going to repeat as champions because, like I said, 12 teams in 78 years have done it. And all those teams have had a minimum top 20 all-time player, maybe higher, depends on how you feel about Isaiah Thomas on that team. And as far as where Jokic ranks on that top 20, we'll get to that one in the next segment. So between last episode and this one, Jokic secured his third MVP, his third in 4 years, and that puts him among 8 other players that have also won 3 MVPs, all of which are Hall of Famers or LeBron James, who is going to be in the Hall of Fame the moment he's eligible. I think we all know that. And I'm going to list the players right now, and then I'm going to say Jokic named last, and you tell me if you think his name fits there, and then we'll get to the rest of the segment. Cool. Magic Johnson, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Moses Malone, Larry Bird, Nikola Jokic. Feels out of place, right? It feels a little off, but I really got to thinking, why do we feel that way? It's not that we think Jokic isn't good. We've clarified Jokic is good. You can argue he's the best player in basketball. I think if you polled 100 people, he'd probably get the most votes. Clearly, he just won MVP. And I got to thinking, is it because it's a modern thing and we have trouble putting modern players into context? That's part of it. I think that has a lot to do with why it's not universally agreed LeBron's the greatest player ever. I'm not here to argue with you, Jordan stands. Just listen to the rest of the segment. Well, really what I think comes down to is age. Jokic isn't even 30 yet, so I decided to do some research and some digging. And I wanted to see how old all these other players were when they got their third MVP. And what I found might surprise you. Starting with Magic Johnson, got his third MVP in the 1989-1990 season at age 31. Wilt Chamberlain got his third MVP in 1966-1967 season, also 31. LeBron James, 2011-2012 season, he was 28 years old. Bill Russell, 1961-1962 season, 28 years old. Michael Jordan, 1991-1992 season, 29 years old. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 1973-1974 season, age 27. Moses Malone, 1982-1983, age 28. We do not talk about Moses Malone enough in history. One day during the offseason, since I'm going to have a lot of time and a lot of space to kill, I'm going to do a whole Moses Malone episode. We got to talk about Moses some more. The chairman of the boards don't get the respect he deserve. And lastly, we got Larry Bird, 1985-1986 season, 30 years old. So 29 years old doesn't sound so crazy anymore, right? And then I pulled out my little calculator and I decided, what's the average age among those 8 players? You want to know what I got? 29 years old. So it looks like Jokic is right on time. I do wonder, though, how will we look at his career if, hypothetically speaking, He doesn't make it to another finals, play in another finals. So I was kind of thinking, how do we look at a Dirk Nowitzki, for example? I promise I'm not just doing it because they're both white and European. I'm actually going somewhere with this. Jokic, currently as it stands, if he were to retire tomorrow, 3 MVPs, 1 championship, and a finals MVP. That's a Hall of Fame resume right then and there. He's going to walk in. Dirk's whole career, plus 2 MVPs in 10 years less of time. And I don't think I'm breaking any news to y'all to tell you that Jokic is not playing until he's 40 years old. He could, because he doesn't jump, and it's not like his knees are going to wear out on him, but he has no interest in being in the league that long. I know how sports media is, and anything short of repeating as champions this year, it's going to be, oh, Jokic is a fraud. They didn't step up that much. And you saw it happen already when they were down 0-2 to the TWolves, and now the series is what it is, and the narratives are a little different. But regardless of what happens the rest of these playoffs, I just want us all to accept it. Yes, Jokic already has an all-time resume. We got to see how the rest of this goes before we start leapfrogging him over people. But right now, it's not blasphemous to say he's somewhere in the top 20, 30-ish conversation because the resume warrants that. All right, that's enough research for one day.